Hi everyone, welcome to Learn Excel with Robert. New here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. Today we're talking about one of the most useful things you can do in Excel, looking up data. Specifically, we're going to cover three functions, the VLOOKUP, the HLOOKUP, and the XLOOKUP. Which function you'll use will depend on which version of Excel you're on. If you're using an older version like 2019 or older, you'll be working with VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP. But if you're working on Excel 2021, or if you have a Microsoft 365 subscription, then there's a newer version called the XLOOKUP. We're going to cover all three of those today, and so stick around, and by the end, you should know exactly which one's right for you. Here's the scenario we're going to be working with today. Imagine you're working in a small office supply company. There's a product catalog of 25 products, each with a product ID, name, category, price, how many are in stock, and along with the supplier's name. Then on a different tab, we have sales order. You can see we have order ID, dates, how many units were sold, but the other columns are blank. That's our job for today. We're going to use the different lookup functions to pull information from the catalog tab to the sales order tab. This is exactly the kind of thing you'll come across in real life, where there's data in one place and you'll need to bring it to another. So let's take a look at it. Let's look at these four arguments. This is what our formula looks like. And argument 1 is the lookup value. This is what we're searching for. In our case, that's product ID. Then we have our argument number 2, which is our table array. This is the table we're searching in. We want the product catalog on the product catalog sheet. Specifically, we're going to do columns A through F. One important thing to keep in mind, the value you're searching for needs to be in the leftmost column of your table array. And the value you want to bring back has to be to the right of it. VLOOKUP can only look in one direction, left to right. We'll see why that matters when we get into common problems. We have our third argument is the column index number. This is the column number inside the table array that you want to pull back. The product name is what we're looking for and have to have returned, which is in column 2 of the catalog array. So, column numbering always starts with the first column of your selected table array, not from column A of the spreadsheet. In our case, product ID is column 1, product name is column 2, category is 3, unit price is 4. Always count from the start of your selected table array, not from the sheets. We have argument number 4, which is the range lookup. This is the one that trips up the most people. When you're you most always want to use false here. False means that you define an exact match. If you leave it blank or put true, Excel does an approximate match, which may give you wrong results unless your data is sorted in a very specific way. Now let's go ahead and build this out. On cell E2, that's where we want the product name to appear. Now let's start typing our formula. Equals V lookup, and open bracket. Our first criteria is what is it we want to look up. We want to look up our product ID, and then we'll hit a comma. Our next argument is the table array, which is on the tab product catalog, and we'll select our range that we want to use. And before we leave this, we're going to go here in the formula bar and highlight our cell references and hit the F4 key to create an absolute reference. You'll see that dollar signs appear. An absolute reference means the range stays fixed when copying the formula down. Without it, Excel uses a relative reference which shifts each row when you copy it and will cause your formula to break. And so we'll do a comma to go to our next argument. We're now looking for the column index number. Our product name is in column 2, comma, to go to the next argument, we want an exact match. So we'll choose false and we'll close it and hit enter. And the lookup pulls in the product name. And let's copy this formula down. And so now everything has a name. Let's do the same thing for unit price. We can come into unit price equals VLOOKUP, open bracket. We're still doing this, looking at the product ID, and then comma, our table array. That stayed the same as well. So let's highlight our array. Let's make it an absolute reference. And then a comma to go to our column index. But this time, the information's in a different column. The unit price is in column 4. So we're going to put a 4 in there, and we still want an exact match, so we'll choose false. We'll close our bracket, and when we click enter, it brings in our unit price. And then let's copy that down for all our items. And then finally, total sales. Total sales is simply the multiplying quantity sold by the unit price. And we can do that. You can see our total units, total sales, and we'll copy that down. So now we can see our product names, unit price, and total sales. Let's pause here and talk about the mistakes that catch almost everyone off guard with VLOOKUP. These come up constantly, so let's take a look. Problem number 1 is the NA error. There's nothing more frustrating than staring at data that looks perfectly correct and still getting an NA error. What could be going on is you could have extra spaces. Data exported from other systems often carry invisible trailing spaces. Your cell appears to say P003, but actually it's P003 with a hidden space. VLOOKUP treats them as a completely different value. When it comes to spacing, you could fix this by wrapping your lookup with the trim function. It would trim off the spaces. Numbers stored as text. This is my number one thing that I always come across. Is say you have a product ID that's a number in one place and text in another. They won't match. Watch for a small green triangle in the cell corner. That's Excel's way of flagging a mismatch. The value simply doesn't exist, or maybe it's misspelled. Sometimes the data isn't really there, or, it's always good to check your source before you go on. You can handle those NA errors by wrapping it with the if error function. What it would do for you is the if error function, when instead of returning the NA, you could have it return a friendly message like not found. And you can find that this would be a much more professional look, especially if you're sharing your work with others. But just remember, when you see an NA, check for spaces, look for data mismatch types, or the equivalent type of thing. It's also worth noting that if you wanted a finer control, instead of doing if error, you could do the if NA function. That catches only NA errors, but it will let the other errors types stay visible, so you would know if something else was going on. And if you're using Excel 2021 or 365 subscription, XLOOKUP has the if error function built in automatically. Problem 2 is you forgot to lock your table range. When you copy a formula down in Excel, Excel shifts the cell references to match. This is usually what we want, but for our table range is an exception. Without the dollar signs locking it in place, Excel will nudge the range down every row. After a few rows, the VLOOKUP is searching for a completely wrong part of the spreadsheet. So always make sure that you're doing an absolute reference with your thing. Problem number 3 is the wrong index number. The index is just a number you type, which means it's easy to get wrong. You can easily break it without realizing it. There's a couple of ways this can break. You counted your columns wrong. You always start with the first column of your table and not from the first column of the spreadsheet. Another column could have been added. So if you're sharing this with other people and they're making changes, a colleague inserts a new column in the catalog. Every index number shifts. The VLOOKUP quietly starts returning wrong data. It could have an error. It could not have an error. It depends on where the column was inserted. If it was inserted and moved a text field over, you would get an error. If it moved a blank column over, you would just see wrong values. That's one of the it's one of the biggest risks when using VLOOKUP in a shared workbook. XLOOKUP helps with this because it doesn't have those type of limitations on it. The fourth thing is you're not using false for an exact match. The fourth argument, the range lookup, defaults to true if left blank, or where true means it's an approximate match. It's designed for sorting numeric lookups like tax brackets, but for names, ID, codes, you will find that wrong results will without any warning. No error appears. VLOOKUP just picks whatever it thinks is the closest match and moves on. You might not catch the mistake until somebody else does. So it's always a good habit to always type false in there to get an exact match for it. And the fifth problem that people seem to have with this is VLOOKUP only can look to the right. So all searches go from the first column of your table and return values to the right. Left looking is not possible in VLOOKUP. So if you want to search for the product name, but you find its product ID is to the left of it, a VLOOKUP won't work for you. You would have to restructure your data so what you're looking for is on the right. XLOOKUP fixes this, and it does not have the shifting problem like that. So we will look at that when we look at XLOOKUP. Chances are you've come across one of these before. Which one? Tell me in the comments, and if you want a future video on errors and fixes, let me know. Next up is the HLOOKUP, which works on the same principle as VLOOKUP, but in a different direction. The H stands for horizontal, which tells you the key difference. Instead of searching for a column, it searches for a row. It doesn't come up as frequently as VLOOKUP. Most spreadsheets are structured vertically, so VLOOKUP is more commonly used of the two. That being said, HLOOKUP is worth knowing, particularly if you're working with summary tables or you're inheriting a spreadsheet built by somebody else. I've switched over to the category discount sheet. Let's take a look at this table. Categories run across the top row with discount rates in the row beneath. A horizontal layout that's a natural fit for HLOOKUP. One thing to keep in mind is that your index number refers to a row, not a column. Everything else works exactly the same way. Now let's switch back to our sales order tab. The category column has already been filled out, so let's build our formula to pull the discount rate in for each category. So we'll start with an equal and do HLOOKUP. And then we're going to look up our lookup value. And then we'll go to our category sheet and we're going to pick our table range. We're going to fix our range to be an absolute value. Then we want our row index. So our rates are in row 2. And we want to do an exact match, so we're going to choose false. And so our results come in. 10% for items in the office category. So let's copy the formula down for all the other items. So we can copy this down and see the discount for all our categories for everything in their sales order. VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP follow the exact same logic. The only difference is direction. One's vertical versus horizontal. The arguments and the structure are the same. Let's move on to XLOOKUP. It changes the way you think about lookups in Excel, and here's why. With VLOOKUP, your lookup column has to be the first column in your table. XLOOKUP removes that restriction. You can look up and return values from any column in any direction. VLOOKUP depends on the column number to return the right value. And if you enter the wrong number or even insert a new column that shifts those numbers, your formula will return the wrong data or break entirely. XLOOKUP references the column directly, so there's no number to get wrong, and adding columns doesn't break anything. And with XLOOKUP, has its own built-in way to handle the not found errors, which save you from writing extra formulas to keep things looking clean. XLOOKUP has 3 required arguments and 3 optional ones. Here's our basic structure. And we're going to focus on the first 3 because that's all we need for most tasks. We have the lookup value, same as before. It's what we're looking for. The lookup array, the column you're searching in, not the entire table, just the column. And then we have the return array, the column that you want the return the value from. You're pointing directly to a column rather than counting to it. Now let's recreate the product name lookup, but this time with XLOOKUP. I'm going to click on the sales order tab and go to this E2 cell and start typing. So in E2 equals X lookup. And our value we're looking for, in this case our product ID, comma, our lookup array. So we go to our catalog and we're going to choose column A, comma, then we want our return array, which is in B, and then we can close our formula, and when we hit enter, there's our result. Same answer, but a simpler formula. Something to keep in mind, if you plan on copying your formula across rather than down, you may want to lock the range by making it an absolute reference. Also, as a bonus, the 4th argument is optional, but it lets you specify how to display when there's no match. So, like before, if we had something that caused no match and we got the NA, we can up in the formula, we can use the optional command to say not found, and when we hit return, so now it's not instead of returning the NA error, you got the not found. And we can also copy this all the way down so we can see everything. So it's much better for keeping your spreadsheet readable. Now that we've seen all 3, did you already know all of them, or was any of this new? Let me know in the comments. Let's quickly review what we've covered today. VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, and XLOOKUP all do basically the same job, finding a value and returning a match. The difference is just direction and flexibility. If this video helped you out, hit the like button. It really does help out the channel. Have any questions? Drop them in the comments. Next time we're getting into pivot tables, one of the most useful tools in Excel for summarizing and analyzing data. And something a lot of people find intimidating at first, but I promise it's a lot easier than it looks. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out. If there's any topic you'd like me to cover, let me know in the comments. I'm always looking for ideas. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.